epic ATGM strike marks fierce Dechensky assault. A dramatic video begins with a Russian ATGM strike during the Dechensky assault in the DPR, captured by Russian military cameras. As the battle unfolds, Russian troops push forward under heavy Ukrainian fire, forcing them to slow their advance in anticipation of a counterattack. The sounds of gunfire and explosions fill the battlefield, reflecting the intensity of the clash. Despite the fierce resistance, Russian forces continue their advance, moving cautiously and clearing each house to ensure troop safety. The footage highlights the brutal, close-quarters nature of the fighting, where every street and building becomes a decisive point in the struggle for control. Deadly precision, Russian ground drone delivers TM-62 mines to Ukrainian hiding spot near Tarasovka. On the front line between Pokrovsk and Konstantinovka, new footage from a Russian drone observer has revealed yet another dramatic episode in the ongoing conflict. The video begins with a Ukrainian soldier peeking cautiously out of his hiding place, scanning the area for signs of movement. Unbeknownst to him, his position had already been tracked, and Russian forces were preparing a calculated and devastating response. The strike was carried out by troops of the 33rd Motorized Rifle Regiment Storm Crown, operating near the village of Tarasovka. Instead of relying solely on artillery or aerial drones, the Russian unit deployed an innovative weapon system, a ground-based courier robot. This small yet deadly machine was tasked with delivering a pair of TM-62 anti-tank mines directly into the basement where Ukrainian troops were believed to be sheltering. The TM-62, a highly destructive Soviet-designed mine, has been adapted for versatile combat use. Mounted on the ground robot, these explosives were turned into a precise strike package, guided remotely towards the enemy's hiding spot. Slowly but steadily, the courier robot advanced across the battlefield, undetected by the Ukrainian troops who remained focused on threats from above. As the drone operator relayed real-time visuals, Russian troops carefully maneuvered the robot toward its target. The footage captures the tension of the moment, the mechanical courier rolling forward, carrying with it a deadly payload. When the robot reached the identified location, Russian operators triggered the detonation. A violent explosion ripped through the basement and surrounding structures, sending debris flying into the air. The strike obliterated the Ukrainian hiding position and neutralized the soldiers inside. The Hyena Group UAV operators discovered the temporary deployment point of the 155 Infantry Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in one of the buildings, after which they transmitted the coordinates to the gunners. It is noteworthy that seconds before the impact, the bird, which was sitting a couple of meters away from the enemy, decided not to tempt fate and flew away. But the fighters couldn't show off their intuition. A direct hit destroyed the position, leaving only scattered fragments of equipment and destroyed walls in place of the former shelter.
А чё кто попал в него? Здесь красная хуйня горит. Заебись, заснял эту хуйню. Бля, что он весело, пацаны, отвечаю. Это мой, блядь, я слушал, блядь. Пуля молоко летает, я буду слушал, блядь, вчера ставить на первый фильм, блядь, видел, смотри, там большая ямка, смотрю, блядь. Чего, блядь, сработало раньше. Вот я резко подошел, низом пошел. Я вылез.
By Russian Defense Ministry on progress of special military operation. The armed forces of the Russian Federation continue the special military operation. The Sever group of forces inflicted losses on 3 mechanized brigades, an air assault regiment of the armed forces of Ukraine, and a territorial defense brigade close to Stepnoy, Varakino, Grunovka, and Alexivka, Sumy region. In Kharkov direction, units of a motorized infantry brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine and a territorial defense brigade have been hit near Volchansk and Zapnovoy, Kharkov region. The AFU losses amounted to up to 150 troops, an armored fighting vehicle, 7 motor vehicles, and 3 artillery guns including a Western-made artillery gun. 3 electronic warfare stations, an ammunition dump, and 5 material depots were neutralized. Units of the Zapad group of forces improved the tactical situation. Russian elements inflicted losses on manpower and hardware of 2 mechanized brigades and an assault brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine near Yampol, Shandrigolovo, and Karpovka, Donetsk People's Republic. The enemy losses amounted to more than 240 troops, a tank, 5 armored fighting vehicles, 22 motor vehicles, and 2 artillery guns including a Western-made artillery gun. 9 electronic warfare stations and 9 ammunition depots were neutralized. Units of the YUG group of forces took more advantageous lines and positions. For mechanized brigades, a mountain assault brigade, an assault brigade, an airmobile brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine, a marine brigade, and a territorial defense brigade have been hit near Zakotnoy, Platonovka, Konstantinovka, Seversk, Alexandro-Kalinovo, and Artima, Donetsk People's Republic. The enemy lost up to 260 troops, 4 armored fighting vehicles, 15 motor vehicles, and 4 artillery guns. 2 electronic warfare stations, a counterfire radar, and 2 material depots were neutralized. Units of the Center group of forces continued advancing into the depth of enemy defense. Russian formations inflicted losses on manpower and hardware of 3 mechanized brigades, 2 air assault brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine, a marine brigade, a territorial defense brigade, and a National Guard brigade near Teretskoy, Artyomovka, Dmitrov, Torskoy, Vladimirovka, Zolotoy Kolodez, Novoalexandrovka, and Krasnoarmysk, Donetsk People's Republic. The AFU losses amounted to up to 460 troops, 6 armored fighting vehicles, 3 motor vehicles, and 2 field artillery guns. As a result of the offensive actions, units of the Vostok group of forces liberated Olgovskoy, Zaporozhye region. Russian troops engaged 2 mechanized brigades, an assault brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine, and a National Guard brigade close to Veliko-Mikhailovka, Gavrilovka, Malomikhailovka, Novonikolayevka, Dnipropetrovsk region, and Novoivanovka, Zaporozhye region. The AFU lost up to 260 troops, 2 tanks, an armored fighting vehicle, and 10 motor vehicles. 2 electronic warfare stations and an ammunition depot were eliminated. The Dnepr group of forces inflicted losses on manpower and hardware of a mechanized brigade, 2 coastal defense brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine, a territorial defense brigade, and a National Guard brigade near Stepnogorsk, Malaya Tokmachka, Zaporozhye region, Belozerka, Antonovka, Kherson region, and Nikopol, Dnipropetrovsk region. Up to 65 troops, 6 motor vehicles, and an artillery gun were neutralized. 5 electronic warfare stations and 2 ammunition depots were destroyed. Operational tactical aviation, attack drones, missile troops and artillery of the Russian groups of forces hit the transport infrastructure used for the interests of the armed forces of Ukraine, long-range UAV depots and launching sites as well as temporary deployment sites of Ukrainian formations and foreign mercenaries in 149 areas. Air defense units shot down 82 fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles. In total, since the beginning of the special military operation, the enemy lost 667 aircraft, 283 helicopters, 84,151 unmanned aerial vehicles, 628 anti-aircraft missile systems, 25,116 tanks and other armored fighting vehicles, 1,591 MLRS combat vehicles, 29,590 field artillery guns and mortars, 41,811 units of support military vehicles.